Brodes Media.
Unfortunately, we got to turn the page, fellas, ladies and gentlemen. We can't marinate and bask in the championship as long as we would like because you're behind the eight ball. Other teams are going through their hiring process. Other squads are putting together their staffs. You lost Kellen Moore. Looks like he's taken a few guys with him, which is the nature of the beast. If you are going to be the gold standard in the NFL, which there's no doubt about it, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman has created a culture where teams want to look in their direction to add to their respected staffs. People want to take from Howie Roseman's front office. That's just what happens when you show signs of real, legitimate success and being a juggernaut and being a force and being a top dog in the NFC. So if that's what you are going to be, then you have to be able to handle this. All right, Doug Nussmeier. No longer your quarterback's coach. He gets poached. He becomes an OC in New Orleans. What are you going to do about it? You also lost TJ Paganetti, who was the run game specialist and assistant offensive line coach. What are you going to do about it? And there's so many layers to this. From who has more say in the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach, whoever comes in. Jalen? Nick? Howie? I think we know who has more say. It's going to be Howie. But how much of a voice does Nick have? And what if Jalen thinks that Nick's choice isn't what he prefers? But what if Nick's choice is Nick's right-hand man, Kevin Patullo? I don't know. Who had final say or more say in Brian Johnson? Was it Jalen? Because of the relationship with Brian Johnson? And because that failed, does that mean Jalen, sorry, you got input last time. It was ugly. It was rough. I can't trust it anymore. And then what if Jalen goes, yo, but dude, I'm a Super Bowl champion. I'm a Super Bowl MVP. Don't you think I deserve respect? And then Nick goes, yeah. Don't you think I do too? And then Howie goes, yeah, but I chose Kellen Moore. I put Vic Fangio in place. You guys focus on what you do. All due respect, I love you. It wouldn't come out in a nasty way. This kind of makes it feel like it is, but that's not my point. It would be a very, not difficult conversation, but a real conversation, an authentic conversation, a passionate conversation, an emotional conversation. Nick, you stay doing what you do well because you do something that is magnificent. You do something that's amazing. You are an incredible leader. Let's keep that where it was because it shows when that shines, we are a phenomenal football team. Yo, Jalen, I know it sucks that you have another new offensive coordinator. You got more language you're going to have to deal with in the offseason, a different playbook. You're going to have added layers to this puppy. But you're great, dude. You're a Super Bowl MVP. You just shut up the entire world who doubted you. You're going to be dominant no matter who I select to be your QB coach. Trust me, I got this. I brought in Kellen. Look how that transpired. And this is following a pretty rough 2023. So bear with me. But I promise I got you guys. You know what I mean? I don't know how this is going to go. It's truly fascinating. I can't tell you one way or another about if Kevin Patullo is going to be good or bad. I don't know. Quite frankly, I thought Kellen Moore was an okay hire. He's now a Super Bowl champion and a head coach. He got canned in Dallas for a reason. And then when the Chargers decided to go with a whole new look and a whole new staff, he was gone there too. But he wasn't lighting the world on fire with Justin Herbert and in L.A., right? It got so bad where they decided they needed a whole new facelift and they needed to change a ton about their identity. So I thought it was just a solid hire with a guy who is established, who has called plays in an organization that applies pressure, Dallas. It's a big deal to be an offensive coordinator in that town. You know what it means when the fan base is breathing down your neck and you have to provide success. You have to win games. I think there's so much that you take out of that experience if you're a play caller in a city like that. And knowing that you're going from Brian Johnson to at least a professional because of the current state of where the Eagles were, I thought it was important to have a voice like Kellen Moore, but it wasn't blowing my socks off. Yet you win a championship. So the reason I bring that up is if it's Kevin Patullo, it doesn't blow my socks off. I don't love it. And I'm scarred because of how the Brian Johnson experience went. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a disaster. It may end up being good. It may end up being strong. It may end up being good for Jalen because maybe it's very similar concepts, similar beliefs. Unless Nick gets more say in that part. Or maybe he's had more say this whole time than we initially believe. And we're all off base. I don't know. There's a lot of confusion there. I'll say this, though. I feel very confident about their quarterback and head coach and general manager. I think they have great relationships. But it's going to be tested now. Because your ego grows when you get that title. Doug Peterson after the Super Bowl, big difference from Doug Peterson before the Super Bowl. That's just what happens. More entitlement. More belief in yourself. You demand more. You look at your resume and you go, hold on a second. You're not going to allow me to do X, Y, and Z? I'm a Super Bowl champion. We did this already with Mike Rowe, with Press Taylor. Now, I don't know if it's going to go exactly the same way because Doug Peterson said, fire me then. Fire me. You don't like it? Fire me. And then he walked out of that house with Jeffrey Lurie in Florida, and he probably had the best sigh of relief in the world. That's not the current state of this franchise right now. You know, at the time that all went down and that happened, it was definitely more hostile. But I'm fascinated to see how these conversations go, what type of offensive coordinators actually get interviewed, and how Jalen feels about all this. And I don't know if we'll ever know, because obviously they're going to give us player speak, give us coach speak, give us GM speak. But listen to Jalen Hurts in the locker room during locker cleanout day, right after they won the Super Bowl. He was asked about Kevin Patullo specifically because it seems like he's the front horse here. It seems like he's the one in first place, and it's almost his job to lose to some degree. Here's Jalen Hurts on the idea of our pass game coordinator and associate head coach being the favorite for the offensive coordinator job.
Yeah. Kevin Patullo's never been he'd have a different role. So it's hard to compare, that role to this role because his job is going to demand something totally different of him. And I have a lot of confidence in him and what he's shown. However, I know, over the years I've learned that's out of my jurisdiction. And so kind of just taking things as they come and trying to go out there and be the best I can be and just learn and evolve.
Now, when I hear that, it seemed like he started off saying certain things and then he realized real quick how bad it was sounding. And then he goes, well, it's really out of my control. But when your first initial reaction from the quarterback is he's never called plays before, I think that's almost a dose of reality that, yeah, I don't know if he's my favorite. I don't know if that's the path I'd go. I don't know if that's the one that I would say is automatically at the top of my list. And it's a no-brainer lock that we're looking at Nick Sirianni's right-hand man. Knowing Nick and Jalen have had I'm not going to say beef, but there has been some tricky obstacles to jump over throughout their time here, and that's the God honest truth, all right? That wasn't made up. There were times where it was a bit tough, and to their credit, they definitely did a phenomenal job of getting back on track, but if Jalen feels a certain type of way about Nick's right-hand man, knowing that Nick felt a certain type of way potentially about Jalen's right-hand man and Brian Johnson, I'm not here to try and, make this thing ugly and rough, and you're coming off of a Super Bowl, and now all of a sudden it's doom and gloom because there's an opening with your staff. But these are real issues. These are things that happen behind the scenes. Now, I do trust the three men in place. I do trust the big three that we're talking about here. And if you want to add Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, probably the biggest and most important, fine. I do trust the four people that are in the hierarchy here to professionally get through this, especially coming off of a bowl, knowing that the objective is we are not going to take a step back. We will push forward, and we will be a Super Bowl contender again. What happened in 17 was fantastic. What happened in 18 was the bar was set super high, and then it never really played out into fruition here. It ended up being dog shit. Can't happen. Now, this team, roster-wise and structure-wise, I think is in a completely better spot than 2018 was. There's a lot of egos and a lot of personalities, though, that are going to want to have an input on what happens with these big jobs in the organization. I believe in them to get through this. I believe in them to have the proper dialogue and the proper conversations behind closed doors. But it's not easy.